the idea behind this festival?
Well, I think in this age of digital communication, we have Twitter and we have Facebook. You can reach to the other side of the world really quickly. So I think musically we should also do that too. That there's no reason we should be like a common practice time or ancient Chinese time that we only work by ourselves and not collaborating. And so that by working with the different traditions and different cultures, and we could bring a humanity that is really, really wonderful for all of us, and also interesting mixture of a culture that create kind of music that is very not the past, not the future, or not the West, not the East. It's something its own genre. So I think that's a very interesting idea. So this 3 days festival is precisely devoted on this idea, and I will program the pieces, both old pieces and new pieces together, side by side, so the audience can hear how much has a new composition in writing for this old tradition, how much has it progress, or how does it expand the traditional way of singing, also expression. To me, as a musician, a composer, I just find that fascinating.
You are conducting two of the pieces on the Saturday evening program as part of the Common Practice 21st Century Festival. Let's talk about these two pieces, starting with, forgive my pronunciation, Yuan Liu.
Yes.
By Ki Yong Chung.
Yes.
A piece from 2009. And the composer is from?
Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Yes, I believe he's one of the younger composers coming out of Malaysia, probably one of the leading composers coming out of the country.
Introduce this piece.
It is a piece that is for traditional in the sense that it's for two pianos and percussion and two percussionists. So we have pieces such as Bartók that has used this medium, as well as George Crumb. But the twist is that it introduces a Chinese instrument to this. So it adds the sheng, which is the mouth organ. And so this instrument is used as a soloist throughout the piece, while I would say the two pianists and the two percussionists set up a sound stage for it. And the soloist moves from the audience and then throughout the soloists, the musicians, while on stage.
For Western-trained musicians encountering music that's not of the West, what are the challenges in terms of performance, or are there any challenges?
It depends. I think with this music, since it's notated, it is, in one sense, it is easier because we are able to see with our common practice tradition of certain expectations of what to hear. But with the limitations of notation, there's a lot of tradition and performance practice that Western performers are probably not aware of. And so what you see on the page may not translate to what one hears. So that's always a challenge. And one of the beautiful things probably about this whole festival is that we get to hear performers versed in this tradition so that we are better informed about the possibilities, the traditions, the performance practice, and what translating to a better idea of what we see on the page to what we hear in our ears.
In approaching this music, what are you having to do differently than you might do with a Mozart symphony, for example?
That's an interesting question. Yes, I think for being Western trained, once again, it's learning about the traditions, the sounds, and getting used to the sounds of these instruments. And as well as the vernacular of these composers. They are combining a lot of them are Western trained themselves, but they are raised in a culture that has its own sounds for traditional music, and they're combining the two. And for someone who is not raised in this tradition, it's trying to understand it, trying to figure out what the composer is trying to communicate, and trying to understand their experience as well, and combining these traditional instruments with this Western vernacular, compositional vernacular.
The idea behind the festival is this bringing together of the Western and the Eastern traditions. How much, or to what extent, is the Western tradition, do you see now being influenced by the Eastern tradition?
I think we are, as Western musicians, realizing the impact of Eastern music and vice versa. I think it's through other mediums besides music, but just simply through whether it's politics or just culture, just seeing the power that maybe just sheer number of people that are in East Asia and the influence it has on everyone's lives here in the West. We are realizing there's a lot of dialogue and sharing that needs to come from this, and through music, through arts, through culture, it's seeing this influence on each other is a good way of bringing, I think, people together.
And what's also interesting in some ways is that we've tended to think of the East coming west through Europe.
Yes.
It's sort of been filtered through Europe, but in fact, nowadays it's coming the other way, straight from Asia to the US, and so it's not being filtered in the same way that the culture is not being filtered in the same way that it was when it was coming through Europe.
I think that is absolutely true. I mean, it's very interesting with these composers, because I would say classical music we see as such a European tradition. A lot of the composers have gone through Europe, either through training or at least through residencies. For these composers, which I will be performing on Saturday, you do see that they have done residencies or studied in Europe, but I see an increasing number that are coming directly from China or Malaysia or Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, Japan. They're coming directly to the States for their studies. So there's a completely different perspective that they'll gain. And with American music, there's absolutely a generation of composers that are American trained, creating the American compositional language. So I think the influence will be upon one another will be completely different, and we'll hear different sounds coming in the next decades from this collaboration.
Jerry Ho, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.